help me explain to our audience, because I have an idea in my head of what this collective network intelligence has. It forms a layer not just for machines to communicate, like the blockchain. Blockchain is how machines can work together, maintain consensus, but this also allows for humans to communicate seamlessly, not just with each other, but also with the machine layer. And then ultimately, what are the kinds of things that the Tau network can be endowed with? What are the abilities or capabilities or the extensibility of the Tau network? We talked about like Google Maps and stuff, but that's not even the beginning of what you could do with Tau. What is the high end? What is the long-term set of capabilities that you can imagine? And like you said, some of it is beyond imagination. But how do we get from where we are today to the limits of our imagination of the Tau network? Walk us through that.
So indeed, the main thing is beyond imagination. The few things we can imagine. One thing is combining brain power. So I will say that I can give you a solution to all problems in the world. You have a problem, you take the 1 million smartest people in the world, you put them in one room until they solve the problem. Well, but it doesn't work, because how can 1 million people combine the brain power? It's just impossible, as for now. But if the computer understands what they say, it can help in combining the brain power. So that's one thing, combining brain power in large scale for the first time. Another thing, which is something that we also work on actually implementing, this is going to be a part of Tau, and a big part of what the Agoras token is about is creating an economy of knowledge. You can trade single pieces of knowledge directly. And indeed, we spoke about training the machine, formalizing knowledge, and so on. If there is also financial incentive to do so, you can expect orders of magnitudes more activity.
And that is an Agora token that you're referring to?
Yeah. Agoras, yes. So another thing is, as you know, people are very worried about AI doing bad stuff. And as we said before about the laws of robotics, the existing field of mathematical logic does not know how to make sure that the next software update will maintain the laws of robotics. And that's a very serious problem concerning AI safety. But how solve this problem? In Tau, you will be able to reject undesired future behavior.
And so to get to that point, all the users of Tau will at some point express that opinion through controlled language, through that process that you mentioned of working with the machine to express your desire. But say, for instance, we collectively put in a requirement into the Tau network, like don't ever launch nuclear missiles. That's the Skynet solution that everyone is afraid of. Can we literally work on that with Tau? Like don't ever launch nuclear weapons or something along those lines? Like you said, the contradictions or the restraints, the rejecting of instructions or coding or other things. Is that how that works?
Yes, whatever you are able to say in the language will happen for sure. But the difficulty is to say what you want to say in the language indeed. To write a whole design, a whole book in natural language is also hard. It's not because it's logic that it becomes hard. It's hard also in natural language. This difficulty is not going to disappear. Maybe it can be spread among many people because of the combining brain power as we spoke about, but it's not going to be fully automatic, fully easy. No.
So let's take that example of creating a constraint, a limitation on the Tau network, something that it must not do, expressed in formal logic. But let's look more beneficial, more utopian. What if we were to say something like, let's say everyone on the Tau networks defined the what, the specification of make sure everyone is fed, make sure that there's no hunger on the planet. Is that something that could be expressed in the Tau language, Tau meta language, and then implemented? And how would that work? Or how would that look? And obviously it'll take a little while to get to something like that. Is that the kind of thing that is possible or feasible, in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, to just express that, of course you can express, but you will need to express so much more to reach a level that the system knows how to achieve it.
Okay, so there's implicit prerequisites in order to achieve that outcome. That outcome could be expressed in the Tau network, and then through the process of conversation or negotiation or exploring those other requirements to work up to something along those lines, or all the prerequisite steps, rather.
Yes, Tau will take what you tell it, as is, with no modification and no guessing, and automatically draw the conclusions. So as long as you gave it the means, whether explicitly or implicitly, to achieve what you want, it will achieve it, well, with a small caveat of the time it takes the computer to compute such stuff, but ignoring this caveat, it will achieve it.
Just to complement that, I guess similarly to the success of current deep neural networks, basically they do this analysis, statistical analysis of so many things that were said in the past so that they can have an idea of what could be meaningful or what is not. Having looked at what is this. Similarly here, but in a completely different levels, because again, with the notion of trust added, is that in order to achieve interesting conclusion, the system has to have knowledge. So I can imagine that at the beginning, Tau will be quite stupid in the sense that it does not have a lot of common sense knowledge to reach interesting conclusion for us humans. In certain fields, for example, if you focus on software engineering, well, yes, because you don't really need common sense there. But if you make these examples of nuclear weapons or whatever, then that's another level of thing. However, what is interesting is that people, by using Tau, will add knowledge. The common sense knowledge is knowledge that we all of us have, even though we don't know that we have. But it's this, all of us, it's interesting because somehow it's all this knowledge that we already have an agreement about. We all know that elephants don't fly. And at some point, possibly, I guess, because of this consensus mechanism, this will be just a fact for Tau. And so it will build slowly all this common sense knowledge because everybody agrees on this implicitly. And again, since we are using logic, then all these implicit facts are also important. So whenever you make a statement that does something implicit, well, it's not explicitly said, but it's true anyway because it's implicit. And so Tau will grow up and acquire all this common sense knowledge. The other thing I wanted to mention is the idea of the law of robotics, because Tau can also take a very nasty direction if people want. So maybe the majority wants to vote for having a dictator. So since they can change the rules, they can change the agreement rules, they can change how the system evolves, they can say, well, only if you get the approval by your preferred dictator. So you have this person that, because everybody agrees, that they want to pass all the agreements through this person, not to this agent, whatever. Just to mention an example. Since now this is the new mechanism of agreement, you cannot change this because it's a law, it's a constitution. And to change this, you have to apply this rule itself. So only with the approval of the dictator, you can change the rule that he is the dictator.
That's if that gets approved in the first place.
Yes, indeed.
But it might not ever get approved.
So that's why I also conceive that there may be branches, different realities of Tao. That the one which has a dictatorship, something like countries, people that create their own majority, religious subgroups that create religious reality or whatever. So that's also interesting, I guess.
So what you're saying is that could be a smaller implementation or an isolated Tau network might end up with that set of rules.
Yeah.
What if Tau ends up much broader, like across entire nations or continents or global? Is that part of the vision? Is that part of the dream where everyone is interacting with the same Tau network and it becomes collectively more intelligent and has the knowledge and capabilities of all humans across the whole planet? Is that part of the dream? That's, to me, that's where my imagination goes with the technology that you guys have outlined.
I believe that anyone should have a significant voice, and Tau is indeed a voice amplifier. And you may ask, well, if you amplify everyone's voice, then what's the point? Then you remain with the noise. But, well, it does the magic of amplifying all voices without having the noise. And I personally, yes, I want to see everyone saying their opinion, and society takes everyone into account. Whether governments want that or will go this direction, I don't know.
I guess a government could adopt it, right? Like one early step, and I've discussed this concept with other folks, is using DAOs, distributed autonomous organizations, or like townships or homeowners associations. That could be a first step. But yeah, it wouldn't necessarily need to be adopted by governments. But if it's by voluntary participation, right? If I can decide to set up a town node on my phone and then I'm participating in the Tau network, it's almost like nobody could stop it either. Is that a possible future? That's one of the natures, the robust natures of blockchain, is that it's difficult to turn off.
Yes. The most revolutionary thing ever happened in history is the internet. And indeed, people say what they say in the internet. They try to stop it. Yes, now we have a lot of censorship, but people still, to a large extent, are able to say what they have to say, although it is propagated only for people who read them. There is a limit to how many people you can read every day. With Tau, you are going to see a summarized map of what everyone says. Because it can be that two people have three opinions, but in a million people, there will not be a million opinions. There will be a lot of overlap.
So you can aggregate and summarize and cluster not just people as a whole, but their opinions. And so it says you overlap with this group over here, and that's part of that finding consensus or finding agreement in arbitrarily large populations.
Definitely, and this is what we call the opinion map. So the opinion map shows who agrees with who disagrees with who, and where is the consensus. So you can think about Twitter feed or Facebook feed. They look like this user said that, this user said that. Imagine you could say it, this opinion is held by those and those users. The other way around.
So let me throw a hypothetical into this. Let's imagine a future where there's millions of Tau users, and there are opinions that are diametrically opposed, that are mutually exclusive. Does the Tau network try to reconcile that, or is the answer it just doesn't address that issue if there's that level of antagonism? How does that work in the network?
Tau will never guess and will never put words in your mouth. It will always be exactly what you told it. That's the whole point of using logic.
Okay, but I guess maybe not Tau, but let's say my opinion is we should feed everyone, and that I express that opinion, and your opinion is we shouldn't feed anyone. People should feed themselves. And so from those two opinions are expressed in formal logic, at least to my, amateur brain, they seem like they're mutually exclusive. And so how would that be reconciled in the Tau network? Or would it not be reconciled?
It will not be. It is a contradiction. There is a disagreement. There are ways to mitigate it. We think about creating a mechanism of debate, which is kind of a game. Debate is kind of a game. Mm-hmm. Another thing is what consensus means. So we can say this thing that everyone agrees on, or the majority agrees on, and so on. And this can also change with time. Bottom line, the users will have to define how to address these situations. There is no out-of-the-box solution.
To walk through a hypothetical where there's any point of contention, whatever the topic is, if there can be no agreement on any particular solution, part of what happens moving forward is there might be discussion about even how to make the decision. What are the decision criteria? Like there might be a debate mechanism, as you said, or there could be the rule is set that you only need 98% majority vote, and if 2% disagree, they get ignored. But any rules can be conjured up and eventually applied through the Tau network.
That's why you need to change the laws of changing the laws. That's right.
Exactly. This is phenomenal. It still blows my mind when I sit and think about the potential power of this network, because it is a learning network. It is a new kind of collective intelligence, or hive mind almost, between humans and machines. Of course, I'm excited about this, and I'll continue rambling about it forever.